Can Canada count on the UK? And Doug Ford's election hat trick. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Going beyond the headlines.
Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Canada could use a friend these days. With U.S. President Donald Trump promising to impose tariffs on all of our exports as soon as next week, and talking almost daily about his desire to see Canada to become the 51st state, it would be nice to see a show of support from some of our traditional allies, like the United Kingdom. But that was in short supply yesterday when British Prime Minister Keir Starmer held a news conference alongside President Trump at the White House. This was one of the questions put to the British Prime Minister by one of the journalists in attendance.
Did you discuss with President Trump his repeated statements of desire to annex Canada? And has the King expressed any concern over the president's apparent desire to remove one of his realms from his control?
And this was the answer from Prime Minister Starmer.
Look, we had a really good discussion, a productive discussion, a good discussion, as a result of which our teams are now going to be working together on an economic deal. Our teams are going to be working together on security in Ukraine. You mentioned Canada. I think you're trying to find a divide between us that doesn't exist. We're the closest of nations, and we had very good discussions today, but we didn't discuss Canada.
Thank you. Please.
Prime Minister Starmer, who is leading a Labour Party government, a progressive left-wing government, also appeared on Fox News, where he did an interview with Bret Baier. He was again asked about Trump's talk about Canada.
King Charles obviously is also the head of state in Canada. What do you or does the King think about President Trump's calls for Canada to join America as the 51st state?
Well, let me deal with the invitation, because this is a very special invitation, because it's an invitation to the President from His Majesty the King for a second state visit. That's unprecedented. That's not happened before. That is history in the making, and I'm very pleased to be able to go back to His Majesty and tell him that President Trump has agreed. As for what His Majesty may think of world events, that's not for me to say. His Majesty obviously will express himself in his own way, but it's not for me to express his views.
So, with friends like that. By the way, at the same White House news conference, Donald Trump again explained how much he loves the word tariff.
We're going to bring our car industry back. We're going to bring our chips back. We're going to bring so many things back to our country, including pharmaceuticals and drugs. And the thing that's going to get us there is tariffs. And I say often it's my favorite word in the dictionary, but I always preface that by saying now, because I got into a lot of trouble with the fake news where they say that's not good. So I say God, love, family, wife. They're all my favorite words, but tariff is about number 4 or 5 on the list. But I will tell you, it's going to make our country rich, and it's going to stop us from being a laughingstock all over the world.
Now, as for that tariff threat, that was the excuse given by Ontario Premier Doug Ford on the need for a snap election in Ontario. Premier Ford maintained he needed a mandate from the voters of Ontario to deal with the Trump tariff threat, despite the fact he already governed the province with a massive majority earned just 2 years ago. But last night, the voters delivered again for Ford and the Ontario PC Party. It's a third consecutive majority government, something no party in Ontario politics has done in 6 decades. Election night was over early. The news networks called it for the Ford PCs just 10 minutes after the polls closed. During his victory speech, Premier Ford said the people have spoken.
This election, we asked the people for a mandate to make Ontario the most competitive place in the G7 to invest, create jobs, and do business. The people said yes. We asked the people for a mandate to unleash the awesome economic potential of the Ring of Fire. The people said yes. We asked the people for a mandate to build up our economy by tearing down internal trade barriers, and the people said yes. We asked the people for a mandate to cut red tape and the excuses, streamline approvals, and build things faster. The people said yes. We asked the people for a mandate to get the federal government out of our way so we can get shovels in the ground on the projects that will build the true North Strong and Free. The people said yes.
Well, less than half the people did. Voter turnout for this winter snap election was barely higher than the record low. Just 45% of eligible voters bothered to cast a ballot this time out. And it was another bad night for the Ontario Liberal Party. Despite finishing second in the popular vote, the Liberals managed to win just 14 seats, and the party's new leader, the former mayor of Mississauga, Bonnie Crombie, failed to win in her own riding, losing to the PC candidate there. But despite that loss, Crombie says she's staying on as Liberal leader.
Look, voters have given Doug Ford another mandate tonight. Smaller, but nonetheless. But many of you are asking for a strong voice to hold him accountable as Premier. And you can count on me, okay? So I'll say this tonight, Doug, we'll be watching. Yep.
This provincial election in Ontario that cost almost $200 million changed almost nothing at the Ontario legislature. The PC still have a big majority. The NDP is still the official opposition. And the Liberals got trounced again for the third election in a row. Premier Ford made the Trump issue the issue of the election campaign. He spent more time in Washington than they did in Ottawa during the 29-day writ period. Did more interviews with American media outlets than he did with those based in Ontario. But still, he is the first Ontario Premier to win 3 consecutive majority governments in 65 years. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
With our expert in communications, crisis communications, political communications, branding, and leadership, Barry McLaughlin is the president of TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. Barry lectures at the Telfer School of Management at the University of Ottawa and at the MBA program at the Shannon School of Business at Cape Breton University. Welcome back.
Great to be here, Rob.
Well, let's talk about Doug Ford's big win in Ontario. Premier Ford at the PC party have now won 3 consecutive majority governments. That's something that hasn't happened, as I just mentioned, 65 years. What is the secret to Doug Ford's success?
Well, that's really a great question, actually. Some of it is Doug Ford himself. He's a great retail politician. He's good on television. He does well in debates. People like him personally. He has kind of a reverse of Velcro. Everything slides off him. Nothing seems to stick, scandals and anything else. Secondly, he was given a huge gift, which was Donald Trump. And at the same time, he is chair of the Council of the Federation of all the premiers, so he is the point man. He stepped right up to the plate just when Justin Trudeau's world was collapsing. There was Doug Ford with dominant in the storylines of Canada's fighting back. So it was a perfect combination of events for him. And he they always say in politics, sometimes your day arrives, and it was this example. His day arrived. It's not that the other two, were terrible. No, they weren't. They were kind of pretty good. They were trying to do the usual, healthcare, environment, but really when people are focused on a real fear, anxiety, you've got to step up there and be the person to lead us out of it. And he was there. This was his moment.
Yeah. Yeah, the stars were aligned for him, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay, so 4 more years of Ford. Let's talk. I really want to talk about Mark Carney's week. Okay, kind of assess the week that Mark Carney had. I mean, first of all, he made it through the 2 leadership debates, largely unscathed. Yep. What did you think about how he performed in those debates?
His French one was the toughest. It was the survival mode. He made a little bit of a blip there, but that should have been a heads up that any little blip you give about Hamas, we're with Hamas, oh boy, look out. And they knew right away to attack on that. A lot of social media afterwards. So that was his, quote, big gaffe. But really, he survived that. And the real test was the next night in English. He did fine. I mean, it wasn't a clear runaway victory. He didn't need to. He needed to win by not losing. And he certainly won by not losing. He is the front runner. They weren't of a mind to go attacking him, frontally. Did some elbows in the corner. He loves hockey metaphors. A few elbows in the corner. But really, in the end, he did fine. So that started really well for him. Those were the final tests, because the very next day were the early voting that began right away. So I think it was a solid start to the week, but it got a little worse pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, where is he now? I mean, he should be out there, but he's not out there. He's kind of gone to ground because, he's been accused of lying about the decision to move the headquarters of Brookfield Asset Management to New York from Toronto. The story doesn't add up, nor does the story about how he was there working with Paul Martin to help slay the deficit. Doesn't add up when you just look at the timing. So today, you have a trending on Twitter, #LyingCarney is trending on Twitter with all kinds of AI generated images that shows, there's Mark Carney landing on the moon. There's Mark Carney, playing for Team Canada in the 72 Summit Series. There's Mark Carney discovering penicillin. There's, all of this stuff that he is embellishing his record.
Well, let's come back to the Brookfield one. I don't know all the facts of that, but I think I know enough of it. I don't think he, they always say, explain right away and very clearly what took place. If you're chair of the board and the board votes, we're going to go to New York, our capital is going to move from Toronto to New York. Okay, you cleanly say that, and that was the wish of the board, and we did that. And it was, yes, he was the chair at the time. No chair is going to step in. He doesn't have the universal vote. You're going to vote if it's a tie by the board members. But he needed to explain it, even though that's boring. He needed to explain that. He tried to kind of dismiss it and slightly deny it. I think he needed to invest in that and just deal with it, which he's done on other issues. So I think he should have done that. This other stuff about Paul Martin, let's face it, he was Deputy Minister of Finance. He was a major player in that before Stephen Harper appointed him governor of the bank when all that took place. So really, he has a solid, especially it's in his bailiwick. He was the guy for finance that everybody was going to go to, and monetary policy and so on. And so he needed to just sort of, he didn't have to overclaim. He just needs to kind of stay with, this is actually the facts. So I'm just thinking that he's learned some valuable lessons. I don't think they're the death knell. At least they moved off the hashtag carbon tax Carney, a little bit, and now they're doing another hashtag on him, which people are getting a little tired of. I think actually more hashtags. So I think in the end, a little bit of a wound, but certainly not enough to seriously injure him. I think
but when something like that happens, he has made the decision not to say anything about any of this.
It's not good. Yeah, it's not good. It kind of implies that they got me. He needs to get out there, do his thing. I notice he is going to fundraisers and that, but he's not really making himself publicly available. I think he needs to. There's no need not to. And I think if you're going to be prime minister, you're going to almost every second day, if not every day, he's going to have something against you. He's not used to being a public figure in that sense. They elect somebody seeking election. So you're seeing a lot of the amateur mistakes that are made when you first have to face the electorate. So I think, he's going to ground when he doesn't need to. He's got to look like a winner. And he really does have, he has this game in the bag here if he doesn't make too many more mistakes. But, he has to get out there. I'm not sure why he takes that approach. He doesn't need to take this approach.
I want to talk a little bit about Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau was in Montreal yesterday, and one of the reporters asked the Prime Minister about the encouraging polling numbers that have been out recently showing that the Liberal Party has renewed momentum. This is a little bit of what the Prime Minister had to say yesterday.
I have consistently said for many years now that as we approach an election, as Canadians actually reflect on the choice being offered to them between a party that has governed this country responsibly, created a strong economy that has the best balance sheet of the G7, lifted hundreds of thousands of kids out of poverty, created jobs, protected the environment, stepped up on fighting climate change in partnership with Indigenous peoples, moved forward on reconciliation, have been responsible and ambitious for this country.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's good enough. I mean, it's the kind of thing that Justin Trudeau would answer if he was out stumping in an election. And whatever you think about Justin Trudeau, he will go down as a great campaigner. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You don't win 3 elections in a row without being a great campaigner. I don't think Mark Carney's going to be as good a campaigner as Justin Trudeau was. And we could be in a federal election campaign in less than 2 weeks, Barry. I mean, if you were Mark Carney, assuming he wins, would you want Justin Trudeau to have any role in that campaign? Outdoor knocking, shaking hands? Or do you want Justin Trudeau as far away from a Liberal election campaign as possible?
Yeah, absolutely not. You don't want him part of your campaign. And the reason is not personally. I think he likes him. That's not the issue. It's just every day that he's doing something on a partisan basis on behalf of Mark Carney, Mark Carney loses. He's the agent of change. He's going to, move forward from the past and all that stuff. Oh, forget it. So, and every day that he's there, that's going to be thrown off the campaign script for the day. No, he won't be invited back. I think what he needs to do is to be the prime minister all the way through. So he gets several more weeks to be the prime minister on the world stage. He needs to stand up for Canada and do all the things he's been doing there. Stay in that zone. You're the prime minister. Stay in the zone. Do not become a party leader wannabe. Should have been me. I could have been me. And all prime ministers, by the way, in recent history, have, I think, always had a certain regret. I think I coulda, I woulda, maybe I shoulda. They all have that little feel. It's hard to give it up, right? And when you so-called willingly hand it over, well, it wasn't willing, but he did. And he probably has a little bit of, I guess you could say they're loser's remorse, but he certainly had buyer's remorse on that. So really, this is a little bit understandable on a human level, but when he steps in like that, it's not helpful to Mark Carney. It really isn't. So I'd suggest, sir, thanks very much. Keep those thoughts to yourself until your autobiography.
Okay. Very interesting. Well, look, we have more snow on the way for the nation's capital, so hope you make it through the weekend. Okay, Barry. Great to hear from you again.
Shovel in hand.
Yeah, all the best. We'll speak to you next week. Bye-bye.
You have questions.
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
He's been minding Ottawa's business all week long. Tom Korski is back with us, the managing editor at Blacklock's Reporter. Welcome back. Great to hear from you.
Thank you, Rob.
What doesn't add up about Mark Carney's claims about helping Paul Martin balance the federal budget?
Well, the problem is one is geographic and the other is the timeline. So that he's batting a zero on this. In 1995, Paul Martin was finance minister. His 1995 budget was really legendary. And for anyone who was alive, or let alone in that budget lockup I was, it was really one of the great budgets of all time. It was absolutely profound. He cut a lot. And I mean more than Elon Musk without jumping around on a stage with a chainsaw. Brutal cuts. And then he introduced a balanced budget in 1998. So that's our timeline, 95 to 98. Mark Carney says, I am so proud of the role I played in helping Paul Martin in this incredible achievement. Problem.
Yeah. In fact, let's play the clip. This is
good.
Yeah. Just these are his own words. This was Mark Carney this week during the debate.
Well, it was my privilege to work with Paul Martin when he balanced the books and kept the books balanced. And one of the lessons of that is the need for government to continue to focus on how effectively it is spending precious taxpayers' dollars.
Okay, go on.
Problem. He was studying economics at Oxford at the time. He didn't even live in Canada. And it's not like we're missing this by a period of months. He did not join the public service until 6 years after the budget was balanced. I don't doubt that at some point Mark Carney might have met Paul Martin, perhaps in a hotel lobby. He played no role and did not work with Paul Martin in balancing the books. That's impossible.
Yeah. And I mean, it was an epic downsizing in order to balance the books. I remember interviewing John Manley, was the industry minister in that government. And he said he was told overnight, John, the industry department is going to have its budget cut by 30%. 30% overnight. That government, all told during that, it was called program review, right, Tom? Program review.
That's right.
Yeah. 45,000
but it was
people.
It was epic.
Yeah.
Cut 17% of the federal payroll, collapsed the Department of Consumer and Corporate Affairs, went on to privatize Canadian National Railways for $2 billion, cut foreign aid by a fifth. It went on and on and on. It was very profound. It makes Musk look like chump change by comparison. But there's one thing for sure. Mark Carney was not even in town.
Right. He didn't join the Department of Finance as an ADM until 2004. So Paul Martin was prime minister in 2004. But that's when he became he was senior associate DM, I think, at the time of finance.
That's exactly right. It was a temporary assignment. You know what's strange about this, Rob? Yeah. Number one, to make up the fact that you were somehow intimately involved in these profound decisions. The other thing is, Liberals don't like to talk about the 1995 to 1998 budget cuts for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And so for this guy, this kind of tourist, to casually invoke, oh, yeah, sure, I was involved in cutting 45,000 public service
45,000 jobs. Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty jarring.
I mean, wouldn't that be, for somebody in the press gallery, okay, you supported what Paul Martin was doing. I think that do we need to do the same kind of thing now? Would you support the same kind of program review now? When the government laid off 8,000 people from the CBC, 8,000 people lost their jobs at the CBC. I remember that. They closed all kinds of news bureaus because they closed the one in Cape Breton Island where I was living at the time.
Absolutely.
They cut the transport budget by They cut the transport budget by 70%. They cut the budget for HRDC, as it was known at the time, by 40%. As you say, they cut transfers to the provinces, you remember. They took surpluses from the EI funds, surpluses from pension funds. There's a battle brewing over that right now, right?
Oh, so, sure.
Yeah. Mr. Carney, do you support a Paul Martin-style program review? That'd be a great question to ask somebody right now. Look,
Rob, the equivalent layoffs today would be like 75,000 job cuts in Ottawa. Yeah. They'd be jumping out windows.
Let's talk a little bit about Mr. Trudeau, who has mere weeks left in the role. It was January 6th that he announced that he was resigning. How many appointments has he made since then?
Jobs. 104 appointments. It's impressive.
Wow.
4 senators, 6 ambassadors. We count 14 judges. But the real gold are appointments to federal departments and agencies a vast majority of Canadians have never heard of. And these are pretty good gigs. You get a per diem on your worst day and expense-paid trips, typically to conferences in Hawaii in February to talk about, for instance, bridge inspections. These are pretty good gigs. 104 appointments.
104 appointments. I remember a former Liberal Prime Minister seeking election in, I believe it was 1984, was haunted by appointments made by a predecessor on the way out the door. Do you remember something similar to that?
Oh, and
I had no option. I had no option.
Appointments to ambassadors, and there were pork barrel jobs. Paul Martin also had difficulty, remember, in the transition when some of Chrétien's cronies were appointed chair of the Rail. These are good jobs. And they can't help themselves on the way out the door.
So I think a lot of people will remember the scenes of Canadians lined up outside of passport offices, dark and early in the morning. Lines that would stretch down the road. What was going on there? What happened to the service delivery at the passport offices that it became so bad?
A brand new audit. It's been 2 years now, but a brand new audit just released. And it said there was complete chaos in management of the passport office. They said their words, why characterize it? I'll just read it. The entire service delivery model was temporarily disrupted, end of quote. No one really knew what was going on. And there were various departments involved in this, let alone the passport managers who had to call out police to quell the crowds in places like Montreal or cities like Edmonton, where there was, at one point, a 6.5-hour lineup. Or you could do it by mail and wait at least 3 months. You know, it was interesting at the time. The minister in charge was asked whether there would be any liability, whether there were any damages owed people who lost trips, couldn't make weddings, funerals, business conferences, lost deposits on vacations because they couldn't get a passport at the passport office. They got nothing. They didn't get a penny. It was a complete schmozzle.
Who was the minister at the time, Tom?
That's interesting. It was Karina Gould, who now would like to be Prime Minister of Canada. My 2 cents, Rob. In any other cabinet, Gould would have been fired. At the time, she never took accountability and, forgive me, issued misleading accounts of what went wrong. She said, oh, heavens, how are we supposed to know there would be a sudden rush for passport renewals once the lockdowns ended after the pandemic?
And people could travel again. Who could have ever foreseen such a thing?
Exactly. It's not like they had a record of everyone who had a passport that was coming up for renewal. You know the problem? They, according to access to information records that came after the fact, they sent half of employees home and 20% of them quit. And then the application started landing. And Gould never took responsibility. And now I guess she'd like to do to the entire country what she did to the passport office. Hang on to your hat.
Okay. I mean, what did it cost to try and clear that passport backlog?
It was interesting. We see in this new audit, they say at one point, in extraordinary additional funding, over $188 million, over and above the passport office's budget, was spent to clear the backlog. Rob, they doubled the payroll to process the same number of passport applications that they did before the pandemic. The problem was, as mentioned, half of the staff were, air quotes, working from home. It was a study in how to, this was the Hindenburg of core functions. All you got to do is stamp the passports. Couldn't do it.
Let's talk about Randy Boissonnault, the real one, not the other Randy.
We're Randy. Strong Eagle Man.
The Strong Eagle Man. That's right. Strong Eagle Man from Edmonton Center. So he was part owner of a company, Global Health Imports. There were questions about some procurement that it was involved in. What's happened to that company is in regards to government contracting now, Tom?
This is an historic first for a cabinet minister and a company co-founded by a cabinet minister, struck from the federal bidders list. They call it the ineligibility and suspension list, banned from all federal contracting for 5 years. A Canadian first for a federal cabinet minister, Randy Boissonnault. Oh, by the way, why did they ban them? Tips from Edmonton police regarding an ongoing investigation prompted by complaints from a subcontractor. Go get him, Randy.
Okay. All right. I have already recommended this be the protocol for David when we dispatch him out to cover the news, especially during a weekend like we're going to get in the nation's capital, where we have about 15 centimeters of additional snowfall on the way. What is the CBC recommending for its news gatherers in to fight climate change? Tom, what should those CBC news hounds
to
be
make
doing?
a better Canada and reduce emissions? They recommend that David and the equivalents at the CBC get on your bike. How did they put it? This was an actual report.
Get on your bike, right? Yeah.
They said training and engagement opportunities related to environmental sustainability are provided through the organization in varying capacities. Examples include introduction of electric bikes, a new and sustainable way to gather news.
Awesome.
End of quote. Go get them. This is cool.
You know, I was looking this morning. I saw this story at Blacklocks this morning. I was wondering, how many vehicles do you think they have at the CBC? Anyway, like how many vehicles would they have at the CBC?
I know the chief executive officer has a chauffeured car.
Right.
She can't even drive herself, let alone a bicycle.
Yeah. We're not going to see Catherine Tate on a bicycle unless it's a bicycle built for two and she's not the one pedaling. But the government of Canada owns a lot of vehicles. Like it's 50,000 vehicles, but unfortunately they don't actually break it down by department, I would imagine.
The post office alone, largest vehicle fleet in the nation. It is over 45,000. That doesn't even include the departmental motor pools. Huge.
Right. Yeah. And you would think the RCMP, how many vehicles would they have in the RCMP?
Oh, absolutely.
The most recent figure I saw for the CBC was about a fleet of about 500 vehicles, but even that seems to be on the low side.
And the Department of Industry, by the way, last year, number one purchaser of those famous Ford F-150 electric pickups that cost $100,000.
Oh, yes.
Oh, they couldn't buy enough of them. That was before Ford slowed down production.
This is not going to be the mandate of Blacklocks Reporter. You're not getting out there on the bicycle to cover the news.
No. Bikes are for losers. What are you saying?
Plus, could Korsky's hips and knees really take that at his age? Come on. All right.
At my age.
Yeah. All right. Great to hear from you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah. Talk to you soon. Tom Korsky from Blacklocks Reporter. He's with us every week. Coming up, some incredible audio from the White House, with President Zelensky of Ukraine meeting U.S. President Donald Trump. Quite heated in the Oval with the media looking on and recording it all. Wait till you hear this. Coming right up on News Radio. Rob Snow here with David Smith. The Friday Free-for-All Talkback is coming up right after the news. We will follow your lead as we usually do. Bring up any topic you want to. Maybe this topic, because something extraordinary, really something I've never seen happen before, has unfolded in the Oval Office just within the last 20 minutes or so. It is absolutely lighting up social media. The Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky is in Washington today, and he is seeking security guarantees as the Trump administration tries to bring an end to the Russia-Ukraine war. So there's a meeting. You have to picture this. It's in the Oval Office. The media is all around. Trump is sitting in one chair. Zelensky is sitting in another. Off to the side is the U.S. Vice President, J.D. Vance, and it devolves into a shouting match with President Trump and the Vice President, J.D. Vance, berating Zelensky. Let's listen to this.
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are not strong...
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the President for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military?
We have problems.
And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless. God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. Remember this. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war,
you're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards.
Playing cards.
Right now, you don't.
You're
playing cards.
Mr. President.
You're playing cards.
Serious.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's
with
back
all
to you.
respect to your
Far
country.
more than a lot of people said they
respect.
should have.
Have you said thank you once?
A lot of times.
No, in this
even
entire meeting,
today.
have you said thank
even
you?
today.
Extraordinary to see that. Eventually, they cleared the news media out of the Oval Office, and as far as we know, the meeting continues. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. Just a remarkable moment. You may want to comment on that or anything else. The talkback is yours. Right after the news, it's the Friday Free-for-All. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day, and today it's the Friday Free-for-All. That's our favorite day of the week around here. We don't come up with the topics on Fridays. We've been doing that all week. So on Fridays, we just leave it all up to you. Follow your lead. What's on your mind? What do you want to talk about? If you want to talk about something that's been in the news, there's certainly no shortage of news these days, or even today, or even the last half hour. If you want to talk about something that you think should be in the news, you just feel free to raise it here, whatever it happens to be. We would love to hear from you today. Again, our call-in line is 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Sometimes the news comes at you fast, everyone, because, again, we just played this, but I think it's worth playing again. This is really extraordinary. I mean, you picture this. It's the Oval Office. The president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, is meeting U.S. President Donald Trump because he's seeking security guarantees. There's been talk about a deal on critical minerals. And you have the Trump administration saying it wants to bring an end to the Russia-Ukraine war. So you have Mr. Trump sitting there, President Zelensky sitting there, the U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance is in another chair off to the side, and there are various other officials around, and the room is filled with media. And then this happens.
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
That's J.D. Vance.
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military?
We have problems.
And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems, even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You
God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. Remember this.
I'm not
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. But right now, you don't. Yeah, you're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. That's
with
back
all
to
respect
you.
To
Far
country.
More than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once?
A lot of times.
No, in this
even
entire
today.
meeting, you said thank
even
you.
today.
I mean, it's extraordinary to me. I'm really just trying to collect my thoughts about it. I don't really have too much to say about it. I'd like to know your immediate thoughts as you hear that, and what you think about what you just heard as well. I mean, Donald Trump again features prominently in the news of the day because he did an interview with The Spectator, which is a news outlet out of the UK. And he was asked about Canadian affairs. He was asked, for example, about his thoughts on the Conservatives losing support, the Liberals on the rise. He was asked about the Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre. This is what he said about Pierre Poilievre.
The Conservatives obviously have taken a hit in the polls since some of the comments that you've made that the Liberals have leaned into. Do you think that they're still going to be able to pull it out up there?
Well, I think his biggest problem is he's not a MAGA guy, you know? I mean, he's really not. He's not a Trump guy at all.
Yeah. He's more of a throwback Republican.
He's different.
Yeah.
Making a big mistake. They all make that mistake, you know. They think they're going to be the tough guy and they're going to knock out Trump.
Yeah.
And they end up getting the hell beat out of him. So I don't know. I mean, I can't tell you, Pierre. I just don't know. I don't like what he's saying about me. It's just not positive about me, and we've done a great job.
So that was Donald Trump saying Pierre Poilievre has a big problem that he's not a MAGA guy. He's not a MAGA guy, and he's not positive about me. David, there's so much news about Trump today. Do we have the Freeland clip? Because he called Freeland a whack as well. Do you have that?
I
David?
do not have that one right now.
You don't have that. Okay, we'll get that. And we'll play that in a few minutes. So look, why don't we'll stop here. That's a lot to take in just to begin the Friday free for all talk back. I mean, all of this has happened just within the last hour or so. We have this new audio of Trump talking about Pierre Poilievre and this extraordinary scene that has just unfolded in the Oval Office of the White House with Zelensky and Trump and Vance. Feel free to weigh in on that or anything else because it is the Friday Free for All Talk Back. And I'm Rob Snow, and this is News Radio.
Something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So again, it's the Friday Free for All Talk Back. Love to hear from you today at 1-833-668-2577. Let's start with Charlie in Halifax. Hello, Charlie.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
I'm good, Charlie. Thank you. What's on your mind?
Listen. What's on my mind is that Donald Trump and that Vance, what they did to the
Zelensky,
president of Ukraine, him, is total disgusting. Those two guys need to just go away, and I hope the American people force those two clowns out of office. It's totally disgusting. He has nothing good to say about anybody, you know, and for him to degrade Zelensky like that. He's lost his people. His country has been torn apart from Russia. Russia invaded Ukraine. And the United Nations needs to stand up for this man and his country and the people. Another thing, Rob, that prime minister there, or whatever they call him in Britain, you know, I was
Keir
watching
Starmer.
him in the White House. Watching him in the White House. You know what? Britain's not with Canada. And I think Canada needs to get rid of the monarchy. We really do. Okay. That's all I got to say, Rob.
Okay. Were you expecting more, maybe moral support or something from the Prime Minister of the UK when he was asked, about this talk about Canada?
Most definitely. We are a sovereign country. You know, we got the, God bless the Queen, but it's time to get rid of them. Get rid of them. Just get rid of them. Get rid of the king. Get rid of the whole thing. We don't need them. They don't do nothing. That king has not said a word about what Trump's trying to do to Canada. You know what? He needs to stand up and be a man.
All right, Charlie. Thank you for having your say. Appreciate it. You've got us off and running here. Let's go to Norm, is also in Halifax. Hi, Norm. What's on your mind,
How you
Norm?
doing today, Rob?
Good.
How you
Norm.
doing today?
Busy around here today. It's busy around here. What's up?
You got lots of stuff going on to talk about. So
Oh, yes.
I want to mention a couple of things about Mark Carney, but before I do,
Sure thing.
I got to say that Mr. Trump, what can you say about him? I mean, the Americans got a real problem on their hands there. I mean, honestly, and for him to say what he did about Mr. Polyear, I mean, he probably did him a favor because that's one of his problems is people think he's too much like Trump. So he probably did him a favor by saying that.
Yeah.
But what I want to say about Carney is Mr. Carney's been around a long time. And he knew that he was going to get into this for a while, so he should have been out in the public a long time ago, letting people know who he is, what he's about. Really, he come into this at the last minute. Election's going to happen fast. He's making everything quick. I was always told fast decisions. You don't make good decisions fast. I think it's a red flag that everything's being pushed through so fast with him. And I mean, I heard you at the end of the show yesterday saying about all the degrees he's got. You know, when you said that, I thought about a commercial that where Buddy's sitting getting the job, and the employer says to him, he says, "Well, you're well qualified, but we can't hire you because you're overqualified." I mean, honestly, just because he has paperwork, you know, there isn't probably one person in this country that doesn't know somebody, a neighbor, a friend, an employer, that was well qualified for a job that didn't know what they were doing. I think people in this country need to educate themselves more. They don't educate themselves enough. They jump on stuff without getting facts.
Well, I just find it curious that he thought he would be able to get away with making this claim that, well, I wasn't there when Brookfield Asset Management decided to move. I mean, it's a publicly traded company. Every time it makes a big decision, it has to tell the shareholders publicly in a statement. So there are multiple public statements about this and when it started to happen. There's been, and when they did that, there was news reporting about it in the business news media, and Report on Business in the Globe and Mail, on BNN, on television. It's big news. Brookfield Asset Management, big company, going to move its headquarters to New York from Toronto. Of course, that would make the financial press. So the idea that, he was the chair of the board and he could try and somehow claim, well, I wasn't there, when very clearly he was. I don't know. And then the stuff about Paul Martin and being there in 95, 96, 97 to help balance the budget. Well, that's just demonstrably false. It is. I don't think it's the fact that what he did was moving the company down there. It's the fact that he's lying about it. I mean, he's well, that's it. Yeah. I mean, it's not whether it's good for the company or bad for the guy. It's the fact that you lied about it. Why would you lie about it? It's even stupid to lie about. And I mean, he really should have been. He knew about this coming on, and he waited to the last minute. Why wasn't he out in the public earlier, showing people who he is and what he's about? Why is everything such a rush job? I mean, that to me is a real red flag. Okay. Thank you for your call today. Good to hear from you. A couple of lines available there. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Join the discussion here on the Friday Free for All Talkback. Jeff is in Nova Scotia. Hello, Jeff.
Hi, how we doing?
I'm good, Jeff. Thanks.
Hello.
What's up, Jeff?
A couple things. I don't know if he's on here now, but a while ago, a guy from Halifax was complaining that he couldn't get your later hours of your show. Yes. The way I end up doing it is using the Seeker and then using a Calgary radio station. And that way I can hear the last part of your show.
That's one option. Yeah.
Another thing. Yeah, well, it works. The other thing, a while ago when Rachel Notley was on her way out, she was doing interviews. She talked about the Trans Mountain Pipeline. And basically, the way she was throwing numbers around, it was already paid for. I know a few people have been dishing it lately, and I doubt if you'll get an answer because you'll have to ask politicians, but it would be interesting to know if it is profitable, why would we want to get rid of it?
Well, I don't think anybody's suggesting that we get rid of it now that we spent $35 billion in taxpayers' money building the darn thing.
Yeah, but Trudeau originally was going to give it back to the Indigenous people to run, kind of thing. So I would hate to see that happen if it's profitable.
Yeah. But I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm not sure. I mean, if you're the government, you would like, You would like to think the government would rather have a private sector company run a pipeline. Like, what does the government know about running a pipeline operation?
No,
right?
But if it's profitable, then it should at least go up, as opposed to giving it. I can see selling it, but not giving it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, okay. Anything else, Jeff?
A quick thing about Mark Carney. Really, the way the Liberals have supported their leaders in the last 4 or 5 years, do we really believe that they're going to do anything different with somebody like Carney? They seem to be just pick a guy and let them lead by the blind, right? It's the sheeple thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, nice talking to you. This is the first time.
Nice talking to you as well, Jeff.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for your call. Okay.
Bye.
We will stop here. Very busy so far on the Friday Free for All Talkback, but lots of time to fit you in. Get your opinion on whatever happens to be on your mind today. If it's a hot news story, a big issue, give us a call. 1-833-668-2577. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
The Friday Free for All Talkback, although we are following a developing story, is a Trump-Zelensky meeting in the White House devolved into a shouting match this afternoon while the cameras were rolling. Let's have a little bit more of that, David, if you don't mind. Just a little bit more of that, please.
God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know
bless.
that.
You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering
position
on
to
this question.
dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly
this.
what I'm not
You're in
dictating.
no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very
you will
good.
Feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed
From the
yourself
very-
to be in a
from
very
the
bad
very-
position.
Dave, to get the idea, went on from there. There was supposed to be a news conference after this meeting. That's now been canceled. The Ukrainian delegation now leaving the White House. Donald Trump posted on social media, quote, "We had a very meaningful meeting in the White House today. Much was learned that we could never be understood, that could never be understood without conversation under such fire and pressure. It's amazing what comes out through emotion. I have determined that President Zelensky is not ready for peace if America is involved because he feels our involvement gives him a big advantage in negotiations. I don't want advantage. I want peace. He disrespected the United States of America in its cherished Oval Office. He can come back when he is ready for peace." Donald Trump on social media within the last 10 minutes or so. You may want to weigh in on that, but it is the Friday Free for All Talkback. You talk about whatever you want to talk about. That's how we roll on Fridays. Steve is in Calgary today. Thanks for calling, Steve. Go ahead.
You know, I'm a serious history buff. I mean, I go back, I didn't think anything in the last 500 years is current events as far as I'm concerned. So when Russia lost the Crimean War, the 1850s, they lose their one warm water deep sea port. They only got one. And because they lost it, they almost went bankrupt. And that's why they sell Alaska in 1867 to America. The problem with expanding NATO into Ukraine is that if you park NATO ships and block that warm water port, and that's a serious concern for Russia, which is why I don't see them ever backing down from this, they will lose their economy. And the West, for whatever reason, just can't wrap their heads around that this is the one piece of real estate we just can't park our army in Ukraine. The same reason Russia and China would never cozy up to Mexico and park the Chinese army south of the Rio Grande. They're smarter than that, but for some reason, we can't wrap our brain around the fact that they lose Crimea, they lose their economy. And until we figure that
Well, they're
out...
taking Crimea. They went in and took Crimea. They took Crimea
They
back.
had no choice because they
in
kept
2014.
expanding NATO.
Right?
They kept expanding NATO. That's why they did that. Well, there's a whole lot of stuff in the last 20 years. James Baker said we would never expand NATO. And then 4 days before Russia goes into Crimea, what does the Vice President Harris say? We're going to be part of NATO. I'm getting excited here. And because I explained something doesn't mean I approve of it. I'm just explaining.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that, Steve. Crimea. I appreciate that. And there's no indication that Ukraine is going to be a member of NATO anytime soon. Even under Biden, it didn't seem to be. It didn't seem to be in the cards, even under Biden, right?
But this is the big part. The EU, NATO, with Great Britain's economy is 15 times larger than Russia. They have a 2.5 times population advantage. 80 years after the war, they still expect Canada and the United States to show up and solve their problems again. It's time they grow up, and they got to get past their 5,000 years of grudges. And the bottom line is this. If you say you support Russia or NATO, then you sign an affidavit that says, my kid goes in on the first wave. He does not have to be a member of the military to do that. He can be a volunteer. Unless you're willing to send your own kid or yourself as a volunteer, then that's what it really comes down to, because most people think NATO is a concept. Until you actually show up and are part of it in a conflict, then it's just a concept. It becomes real.
But I guess just, part of the big picture is, okay, if Trump feels this way about Russia and its grievances about Ukraine, well, what next? What about Estonia and Latvia and Lithuania and Belarus and Moldova and Romania, all of these countries? What does this mean for all of these other countries?
What it means is that Europe refuses to grow up, and they're going to hang on to their grudges, and they're going to hang. Look, Russia's got a lot of grievances, too. For instance, we build a bomb, and they don't even know about it. We waited 3 years to develop a Western front while 13 million Russians died fighting the Nazis. So they got a lot of back history that's involved in this. It was Napoleon and the Kaiser and Hitler that went through Ukraine 3 times. So they want that buffer zone. Why are we not getting it? Because we don't know our history. I don't think we know our history.
Okay.
My thoughts.
Thank you, Steve, for sharing your thoughts. I have a very difficult time with an American president who accuses Ukraine of starting the war and calls Zelensky a dictator when everybody knows Russia started the war and the real dictator is in Russia. I'm Rob Snow. This is Talkback. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Couple of lines available there. Friday Free for All Talkback. Wide open line, open topic. Tony's in Calgary. Hello, Tony. Hi, Tony. Are you with me, Tony? Tony, please tell me you didn't give up on me. How about Kyle in Listowel? Are you there, Kyle?
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, Kyle. Thank you. Go ahead. What's on your mind?
I'd like to talk about the Trump and Zelensky thing. It's pretty thuggish, the fact that you got a G7 country named the United States of America with the highest incarceration rate in the world, who took 20 years to fight the war on terror with it, which is supposed to be the most powerful country in the world, crying for other countries to help them out, but he's telling Zelensky how to run his life. I mean, the United States has been in 200 plus wars since post-World War II, and now Trump is saying that don't worry about our problem. Then you know what, Trump, baby, this guy's a joke. Like, he's not even a right wing. Like Trump is to me, he's like Trudeau. He's a left winger. He doesn't do what he says. He flip-flops on his ideas all the time. If he really was a man and he really wanted to be a right-winger, he would have put tariffs in when he first said he was going to do it. He wasn't going to flip-flop. He's a fake. He's a phony. He's not even to me. He's not a right-wing at all. He's a liberal. So I think it's smug what he's doing. I'm not a big fan of Zelensky either, but honestly, it's pretty funny that Putin is basically got Trump like a puppet here, telling him what to do. Because you know why? Because Trump knows that the minute China, Russia, North Korea, Iran all come together, the United States is toast. And look at Europe. Europe doesn't want to form a relationship with United States either, the way Trump is going on. So who does the United States really have their back of? South America, Africa? Like nobody wants this guy. So I think it's pretty funny that Trump thinks he's all big and mad and all that stuff. But yeah, no, that's my thoughts on it there, Rob.
Okay, a lot to take in there, Kyle. Thank you. David, is Tony there, or should we move on from Tony?
We've lost Tony.
We lost Tony. Okay, let's go to Michael then in Cape Breton. Thanks for calling today, Michael. What's on your mind today?
Well, what else you think would be on my mind? You talk about democracy in a shamble and a disgrace on Trump and that Vance and them to take a world leader in there during wartime, and they want to fleece him for his minerals and him get nothing back in return. Canada better get ready. Never mind your Tories and Liberals. They've done their job for 150 years. But what a mess that their pathological liar Trump, a convicted felon, a serial rapist, and he can take a leader of another country in there and make the mockery of diplomacy that he made today. Canada, look out for what's coming. The man got no conscience. But
well, I would just say, whatever the conservatives and liberals have to do with this, he did do this interview. Trump did this interview with the Spectator out of the UK. He didn't have very nice words to say about Pierre Poilievre. He's not a Pierre Poilievre fan.
Listen,
he said Pierre Poilievre's not a MAGA guy.
Wherever he can gain leverage to benefit Mr. Trump, that's what he is. There's no principle to that man. There's no principle. Whatever's wrong with the American people, I just think it's in their DNA, and the stupid of the stupid elected them, and now they're stuck with them, and God knows what the future holds for this world. I'll talk to you later, buddy. I'm just going to go.
All right, Michael, that's fine. Okay. Let's go to Eric in Cole Harbor. Eric, you're up next, Eric. Hi there.
Hi, good afternoon, Rob.
Yeah, hi there.
Yeah, hi. You know what? I was just thinking maybe if Trump was the prime minister of Canada, we could take over the United States. It'd be a hell of a loving province, wouldn't
it? I suppose.
Anyways, you know what? Honestly, I listen to your callers.
Yeah.
And I just wonder sometimes where their heads are at. First of all,
okay. They probably say that about you too, Eric. They probably say that about you.
That's fine. No, that's cool. I'm open to that. It doesn't bother me any. Anyways, look at. I think the war in Ukraine was all about rare earth minerals. You take a look at China. You take a look at Russia. They have tremendous amounts of that. Ukraine has an enormous amount of rare earth minerals, probably the largest deposits in the world. And the reason why I say that, I saw Lindsey Graham talking to Zelensky in a meeting, and they were talking about their, war with Russia, and Lindsey Graham said, well, we can't let them have that. We can't let Putin have those rare earth minerals. So in my view, Putin, besides other reasons, entered into Ukraine because you think of it, if they control the majority of the rare earth minerals, that gives them a lot of power in a lot of different areas.
Yeah, maybe,
now,
but Putin has also said that he has this, desire to reestablish the Soviet Empire. Right? He has said that.
Well,
Ukraine was part of that.
I haven't heard him say that, and I'm taking your word for it that you have. So I'm always open to new ideas, and I know that other people know a lot of things about things that I don't know, and that's I don't have any issue with that at all. It's a learning process. But did you know the Americans gave Zelensky $1 billion? You can look this up for yourself, to buy oil. And guess where he bought it from? He bought it from Russia at discounted at $500 million. Where did the other $500 million? No, I'm telling you the truth. Where did the other $500 million go? Right, Zelensky's not this really nice, sweet little character.
Sure. And this has been a problem with Ukraine for so long, right? Corruption.
Yeah, absolutely.
Corruption.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. On that point, we'll agree, but we'll have to wrap it up because that's our time, Eric. Thank you. At a time for our conversation today. Appreciate it though. 1-833-668-2577 can fit you in before the news if you give us a call on a very busy news day today. It's the Friday Free for All Talkback. This is News Radio.
Have
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Here with David Smith on a Friday free-for-all talk back. You wanted to get in on this conversation about what we saw in the Oval Office there today, David. Some of the callers' reactions to it.
Yeah. Just a couple points, because there's a lot of misinformation that gets flying around when we talk about the Ukraine war. The last caller we had on air said a couple things that simply weren't true. I just feel the need to correct. He suggested that Ukraine may have the largest deposits of critical minerals in the world, and he said that he thinks the invasion of Ukraine is really all about those minerals. Ukraine has a lot of minerals. It's about 5% of the world's minerals. It's not the biggest deposit in the world. It's about 5%. And he also said something to the effect of Ukraine bought $1 billion worth of oil from Russia. Not sure where he's getting that from. Maybe he saw the news that that Ukraine is allowing the transit of oil from Russia to the EU, because the EU needs Russian oil to run their countries. Ukraine does do that because they're a good ally to the EU, but they're not buying oil from Russia. Why would Russia sell oil to Ukraine when they're currently trying to defeat Ukraine in the war? So I just wanted to fact check a couple things there.
All right, you have done so. Tony is up next in Calgary. Tony, go ahead, Tony. What's on your mind, Tony? Hi.
Oh, I just want to shine the spotlight back onto Mark Carney, the front runner for the Liberals, who is clearly being installed. He's not. There's no Liberal leadership race taking place right now, and I just don't think that the mainstream media is giving enough attention to these small lies. I watch Global News every day, and I watch a little bit of the CBC and CTV, and they'll talk about it really small. I think they should be blowing it up, because this guy's going to be our prime minister here in less than 2 weeks, guaranteed. And he's telling these small little white lies that don't need to be said. So we can't trust him, right? What's he going to do on the big picture? He's already made mention of invoking all the government powers, right, to do whatever they have to do with this trade war. So who knows if we're going to get an election right away, which Canadians clearly want, or if we're going to go to October 25 or 26, whatever.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. But.
And I don't either, but who knows, right? What they're going to try is what I'm saying. Who knows what they're going to try? Carney can't be trusted. And then you get Freeland, who came out and said that the Liberal Party is the party of the Charter, and they are the ones. She specifically is the one that froze people's bank accounts. They invoked the Emergencies Act, and it was proven in court that they were wrong. And they don't want to admit that. They don't want to say sorry. They don't want to say we're wrong. Instead, they want to come out and say we are the party of the Charter. And that is, how disgusting is that? This is despicable, deplorable behavior by them. And it should be the only thing that the mainstream media, the big outlets, are talking about right now, because this is what Canada is facing. We don't need to worry as much about Russia and Ukraine, right? And Donald Trump. I mean, the tariffs, sure, but how about we blow up Mark Carney, our prime minister, in 2 weeks here, right? And the purgation challenge that's going on. You don't hear much about that either, right? The judge is sitting right now with all the evidence in front of him, thinking about whether.
I appreciate that's going through the courts. I actually disagree with that whole court challenge. I don't want the courts deciding when a government can prorogue and not prorogue. Nobody's electing the courts. Nobody's electing judges. If there's going to be a political price to pay for that, it'll be the politicians.
It's time to talk back
on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
and have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. It is our Friday free-for-all, so we're wide open on topics today. It was a very busy first hour, reacting to all kinds of breaking news that's been happening today. A lot of it is Trump-related, and an incredible meeting that happened in the Oval Office today with Trump and Zelensky and J.D. Vance. It devolved into a shouting match. There was supposed to be a news conference today with Zelensky and Trump. That's been canceled. Trump told Zelensky that he can't come back until he wants peace, that he disgraced the Oval Office. Zelensky has now left the White House. There was no deal signed. It was expected there would be a deal signed about critical minerals. That never happened. So it was quite a day on that front. Trump also making news for comments he made about Pierre Poilievre in an interview with a UK news outlet called The Spectator. And we have some audio of this as well. We may as well cue this up, David. He was asked about the political dynamics in Canada with the Liberals on the rise, the Conservative fortunes seemingly declining. And he was asked about Pierre Poilievre, his thoughts on Pierre Poilievre, and he said he didn't think Pierre Poilievre was MAGA enough. He wasn't a MAGA guy.
Well, I think his biggest problem is he's not a MAGA guy, you know? I mean, he's really not. He's not a Trump guy at all.
He's more of a throwback Republican.
He's different.
Yeah.
Making a big mistake. They all make that mistake, you know. They think they're going to be the tough guy and they're going to knock out Trump.
Yeah.
And they end up getting the hell beat out of him. So I don't know. I mean, I can't tell you, Pierre. I just don't know. I don't like what he's saying about me. It's just not positive about.
It's not positive about me. He's not positive about me. And he also went after Chrystia Freeland as well. Donald Trump went after Chrystia Freeland. This is from the same interview.
She's terrible. I'll tell you what. I know her very well. And
I'm sorry.
No, I know her very well. She's absolutely terrible for the country. She's incompetent in many respects and can only cause ill will for Canada. In fact, Governor Trudeau understood that. I call him Governor Trudeau understood that. And he actually fired her.
Yes. Because
of a meeting he had with me. I said, she is so bad. She's bad for the country. You know, if she were talented, I know people that are sort of bad people, but they do a good job running a country. Who seems to be, who's going to get the nomination, do you think?
I don't know. After that debate, they all seemed, she was the nuttiest, but they all seemed pretty nutty to me.
She's a whack.
She's a whack. She's a whack. Okay. So, Chrystia Freeland on her Twitter about an hour ago said, quote, there's a reason Trump called me a whack. There's a reason he complained about my negotiating skills. There's a reason Putin kicked me out of Russia, too. I don't back down. Trump and Putin know it. I'm ready to fight for Canada and win. And as for Pierre Poilievre, quick turnaround again from the Conservative social media team with Pierre Poilievre on X saying, Mr. President, it's true. I am not MAGA. I am for Canada first, always. Canada has always been America's best friend and ally, but we will never be the 51st state. So lots of moving parts today, and that's just, one story that's in the news. So Friday Free for All talk back. We can talk about that. We can talk about Mark Carney, the week that he had 2 debates. Some would say 2 lies as well. Whatever you want to talk about, just bring it up here. Natalie in Calgary. Thanks for waiting, Natalie. Are you still there, Natalie?
Yep.
Yeah, hi, Natalie. Thanks for waiting.
Hi.
There's a lot happening today.
Oh, that's all right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's an inflammatory Friday.
Inflammatory
sure.
Friday. Yeah, okay.
I would just like to send my honest, sincere apologies to Zelensky, who had to endure that. And I hope that the citizens in the States are listening and that they'll continue to act their conscience and ignore the inflammation that they have at the moment and not react to it. But and I also hope that people can see the larger picture. And maybe.
And what do you think is the larger picture? What would you say is the larger picture that people should see?
There's a certain degree of human suffering occurring, and that needs to end in some way, but it has to be equitable for all parties involved. And bullying and inflammatory negotiations usually end poorly. So I just hope that people keep their heads and people get the help they need.
Okay. As for what happened in the White House today, how would you characterize what happened in that exchange with J.D. Vance and Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky? How would you describe it?
I would say that one side had a very clear result that they wanted, and they achieved it.
Right.
I think that side was the current president. I don't know his motivations for doing it, but I think it was very clear that that's the result that they wanted, and they pulled out all the stops to get it. And I just have utmost pity for Zelensky to be put in that position.
You do. Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing your opinions. I greatly appreciate your phone call today. 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. It's hour number 2 of Talkback. That's the big news today. That's what's going to be on the supper hour news and on the national news tonight. It'll dominate the news network coverage all weekend long, what happened in the White House. We can talk about that. We can talk about all kinds of other things. It's been a busy news week. You bring up something, we will follow your lead. That's how we roll on a Friday. 1-833-668-2577. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
It sure is. It's the Friday free-for-all Talkback, hour number 2. A couple of lines available there. 1-833-668-2577. There's a lot happening that we can talk about today. Peter in Langley. Thanks for calling, Peter. You're on the air.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Peter.
My topic, I'm talking about the Liberal leadership debate, a little bit boring compared to the other news, but
sure.
A couple of weeks ago, I was talking to you about this format of using a debate, and I had suggested that it would be better having a job interview with a single candidate rather than a debate. And that Liberal debate, that solidifies even more for me that I think a job interview is the way to go. One of the things is that in the follow-up afterwards, the commentators said that Carney had missed some opportunities. You know, and I'm thinking to myself, well, if he missed opportunities, I'd like to know what those opportunities, were, kind of thing. And, I would like to have categories and have them, specifically detail what their plans are. Like, everybody was talking all these nice flowery things. We're going to do this and we're going to do that. Yeah, well, let's see some details. I mean, we always ask that, right? What are the details? And you can't get it in the debate. I think the debate was a total waste of time.
Okay.
Freeland was asked, how would you differentiate yourself from Trudeau? And she was asked twice, and she just skirted the issue.
Right.
She didn't answer the question at all. So I don't know. Did you get anything out of that debate?
Oh, I wouldn't even call it a debate. I would just call it kind of a friendly gathering of liberals.
Yeah, and it seems like people are judging them on how well you can argue or how well, you can come up with something crafty to say. And I'm not interested in that. If Carney missed opportunities, it's more important to hear what the things, what
I mean, both
missed,
debates, both debates, if you can call them debates, they kind of went like this. Here are all the ways Donald Trump is bad and threatening our country, and we're the liberals and we're good. And these are all the ways that Pierre Poilievre is kind of like Donald Trump, and we're the liberals, and we're good, and Pierre Poilievre is bad. I mean, that was basic. It was basically 4 hours of that in both official languages.
Yeah,
that's how I view it.
Exactly. And so, what's going to happen when we have a federal election? Is it going to be the same thing? We choose someone based on how well they can argue.
Well, I think the next series of debates, let's say Mark Carney wins this thing, is going to be an election call probably within, I would say, 10 days from now. And then there will be the leaders' debates, but it's not going to be 4 liberals up there all agreeing with one another on how great the liberals are. It's going to be probably Mark Carney, Pierre Poilievre, Jagmeet Singh, and Yves-François Blanchet. And it's going to be a much different dynamic. And that's when Mark Carney that's when we'll find out really, I think, what Mark Carney's made of when he goes up against those guys.
Yeah. Well, are they going to include all, like defense? They're talking about Poilievre wants to build a Arctic base. which is the same thing that Harper did, and it's turned into a fueling station at best. And so how do we learn about the actual details of what they have?
I mean, I think the more interesting thing about what Poilievre said about the Arctic base is how he would fund it, because he said he would fund it by drastically cutting 4 and 8. And I think, when you introduce that, then you're into a really hot issue for a leaders debate about what to do with 4 and 8. Yeah. All right,
and that's
Peter.
exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. So
okay.
anyhow,
Thank you,
I still
Peter.
think a job
Good to hear
interview
from
is
you.
better.
Okay,
you too. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. In Harriston, Ontario. Tosh in Harriston, Ontario. Thanks for calling. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi there. Can you hear me
Hi
okay?
there. I hear you just fine.
Hi.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, a couple of things are on my mind, but first of all, yay to the last caller about job interviewing. I think that's a brilliant idea.
Okay.
So, first of all, it really bothers me that in Ontario, voters are so apathetic and not bothering to vote. I just don't get it, because at the very least, they can vote to support a party financially, right? Because the number of votes helps. Also, people who say they're all the same, how can you say that?
Okay.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, people who didn't vote voted for a tunnel into the 401. And I think if they realize that, they'd probably be kicking themselves in the foot. And when I hear them complaining over the next few years about it, I'm just going to say, well, you voted for it.
45% voter turnout in the Ontario election.
Exactly.
45%. Yeah.
And apparently 20% overall of Ontarians voted for Doug Ford.
Yeah, 19-point-something%. Yeah.
And so I will join your parade in electoral reform. I think that would make a huge difference.
I'm not necessarily calling for electoral reform. Lots of people are now, especially given the results for the Ontario Liberal Party, because they did so much better with the popular vote, but really got the short end of it when it came to seats.
Yeah.
So they would.
I like proportional voting, because then
Sure. Yeah.
It's just that
it's
you
interesting
because
the New Democrats in Ontario would typically probably be all for something like proportional representation, but it's worked out pretty well for them in this election to become third in the popular vote and yet still form the official opposition, primarily because of strength in one city, Toronto.
Yeah, thank goodness for that, personally, I think. But the thing is, though, if I had to choose, I would always vote NDP or Green. Almost always. Okay. But I rarely do, because I have to vote strategically. So that's frustrating. And if we had a proportional system, I would actually be able to say, okay, my first choice is this, my second choice, my third choice. Right? So if my first choice doesn't get in, then put my vote in with the second choice. That just makes so much sense to me.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your call today. We have to run. I'm sorry. We're right out of time. But it was good to hear from you today in Harriston. So we've cleared the line. So every single line is available right now. The wait won't be too long. Fit in before the news. And certainly here in hour number 2 at some point on any topic that happens to be on your mind, because it's the Friday free-for-all. So we're open line, open topic today. Very busy news day around here. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talk Back on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Open line, open topic, Friday, free-for-all Talk Back. Steve is in Kitchener today. Hello, Steve. You're up next. Go ahead. What's on your mind?
Well, just listening to your show, listening to 570 for the last couple of days. I'm actually alarmed to hear so many people calling in, touting Mark Carney as the next big savior of the Liberal Party. And they're going on about how evil Trump is. He's just a billionaire. He doesn't care. It's just, I don't think people really know what they're talking about in Mark Carney. And people really need to pay attention to the stuff that he says. First of all, yes, he's not a self-proclaimed liberal, even though he has worked for the Liberals. People are I'm blissfully unaware that he has only just recently bought property back in Canada, almost because he needed to in order to run for this. But he is very much a World Economic Forum.
I don't have access. I didn't look up Mark Carney's property records. Did you do that?
Well, before you start touting him and talking bad at everybody else, you might want to put something.
I don't know what you're talking about. That I've been touting Mark Carney. Like I haven't been touting Mark Carney.
Every time everybody talks about Mark Carney on the media, and it's all bells and whistles.
Really, you must be new around here then.
He has 3 passports, of which he openly proclaims that he declares himself to be very much a European. But he's coming back to Canada as a WEF employee to take control of the Liberal Party for one reason and one reason only. It's a power grab. And here's a guy who talks about using the emergency measures like Trudeau did to combat the tax hikes that Trump is imposing. People really need to pay attention to that.
Yeah, he said he would use the emergency powers of the federal government to build infrastructure, I believe is what he actually said, right?
Well, no, he's actually used it to combat the tariffs that Trump is imposing. That any prime minister who comes in and is going to use an absolute power grab before he even has power, before he even lives domestically, should raise alarm bells for people. But it's typical Liberals. There's a big name on the ticket, and that's all that matters to them. You win with this guy. I don't think I want to live in a Canada under his control. Think about that.
Okay, I'll think about that. Where are you going to live?
Not in a democratic country that's slowly moving to socialism in a real hurry.
Look, sir, like I don't know why you're going after me. I've never professed to be some kind of big Mark Carney supporter. You'll eventually get to have your say in an election that could be called within 10 days, and you'll get to vote in that election, right? And everything will be settled. I'm sorry? Oh, okay. You can give it, but you can't take it. Gotcha. Loud and clear. You call back anytime if you want to have a real debate. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Well, we're in the home stretch of a very busy talkback today. There's been a lot happening in the news today and all week long. We'd like to get your take on whatever happens to stand out for you. It's open line, open topic, Friday free for all. And again, 1-833-668-2577. The wait won't be too long today. Let's go to Anchor in Calgary. Hello, Anchor.
Hi, Rob. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah, so I want to comment about a few things.
Sure thing.
I am a capitalist at heart, but I am a compassionate capitalist. And what I mean by that is I know a lot of people listening to this may call me socialist or this or that, but I think as a society, and definitely as leaders and as politicians, I think we have all our priorities messed up. And what I mean by that is we are spending money on things that were not needed. The GST holiday is one example. And now the Conservatives are doing the same thing. It's uncalled for when nobody's needed. Well, yes, people are struggling, but when you give something to them, then it becomes an expectation. At the same time, we have the education, supporters of the frontline workers in education and schools. Poor guys are living on poverty wages. They haven't had a single raise in 10 years. We can't we support them?
You mean like educational assistance? You mean like, I assume you're talking about the below the level of teachers.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have two school-going kids, so I know. Then look at education, look at healthcare. And I'm not talking about the big surgeons and all. I'm talking about the frontline workers. Look at senior care. There's so many problems everywhere, and yet we are doling our money that in the long run do not materialize anything significant. Yes, people will get a little break here and there, And I know I'm in one of those situations where I can use extra cash. Who can't? Who doesn't? But it's where we spend money and what signals we are giving. You and I.
If I could just interrupt though, Anchor, because if I could just interrupt there, the thing that worries me the most when it comes to the healthcare situation in this country is that when you add it all up, governments are spending more money on healthcare than they've ever spent at any other moment in Canadian history. I mean, it's an astronomical sum of money that governments are spending on healthcare, and it's only going to go up with our aging population, of course, and all the retiring baby boomers. And look at the state of the healthcare system. That's what frightens me the most, is that this is the outcome for record amounts of funding.
Yeah, and I'm with you 100%. I think you're talking about efficiency. So they need to check into where each dollar is going and what you're getting out of it. So we have this scandal going on, and what comes out of it? More bureaucracy, deflecting. I mean, this is not the, and I'm a conservative. I'm a fiscally conservative person. I'm, socially liberal, but I'm somewhere in the middle, like most people are, genuinely speaking. I want to get up in the morning, go do my work, come back home, put the food on the table and get on. Most people want to do that. But when you have all the shenanigans playing out, it begs to question of where are we spending money, to whose pockets we are lining up all this money. Like, let me tell you something where I'm coming from this. You and I, or any person that I know of, would not be where we are if we did not have good schooling, we did not have the support workers, we did not have teachers, we did not have, the systems in place. Agree?
Okay, agree. Yeah, sure.
Without that, you would not go to college. Without that, you will not be able to hold a degree or whatever in a career. Yet, we have zero respect for these education people. We have zero respect for the doctors. We have zero respect for the nurses. We have zero respect for people who actually provide senior care. I'm just saying this is where I feel like we have our priorities all messed up. We need to start respecting. And respect doesn't just mean throw more money. Respect just means let's be appreciative of what these people go through. I mean, when I heard about that, I never knew that those people generally on average make $35,000 on average, and they haven't had a single raise in 10 years. Wow. I mean, surely as people, we should be thinking really hard. Is that what we want our society to be like, where we're lining pockets for people that already have money, the millionaires and billionaires and the plutocrats these days? It seems like they have all the answers these days. It used to be democracy is for the people, by the people, of the people. Now it's for the billionaires, by the billionaires, of the billionaires. All right. That's what I will leave it at.
Okay. All right. I gotcha. I gotcha. Thank you for sharing your thoughts today on a Friday free-for-all. Afif is in Waterloo. Afif, what's up today?
Hey, how's it going,
What's
man?
on your mind? It goes, with or without me. Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, I'm sorry about the guy that started bad mouthing you before the news.
That's okay, sir. I've been called a lot worse. Don't you worry. Yeah.
I didn't, especially at the end when he laughed at you. I was just angry. I was like, what the hell? Not all Kitchener-Waterloo people are like that. But second of all,
it's okay. Don't worry about that.
Now, second of all, Doug Ford.
Doug Ford, yes.
He's here now, and he's doing the I wanted him to become the premier because he said, oh yeah, I'm going to help out and I'm going to make sure that everything's okay. But now he lost 3 seats because of the whole voting. So now that made me upset. I was like, oh my God, his mandate went down now, obviously, because he had 83 seats. Now he has 80 seats only.
When I think back about the last 29 days in Ontario, sir, and $200 million spent and untold $1 billion spent sending out all those checks to everybody to bribe them just before the election, to have pretty much the same result as before the election. I mean, what was that all about? What was that all about? Was it worth it?
That did not make sense. That's why, how they have electoral reforms in U.S., we should have that in Canada as well, for sure.
Okay. All right. All right. Afif, good to hear from you today, Afif. Thank you.
You do, man. Thank you.
Yeah. All the best, sir. Bye-bye. Friday Free for All. Talk back. More of your calls just ahead. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
To Kyle in Waterloo on the Friday Free for All Talkback. Hi, Kyle. What's on your mind today?
Hi, Rob. How you doing today?
I'm good, Kyle. Thank you for calling.
You told me to call back anytime I wanted last week, so I'm taking you up on it.
All right. I appreciate that.
My first, I've got two kind of comments, if that's okay. The first one,
sure thing.
Is as it relates to, the Liberal Party, Bonnie Crombie, what she's lost her seat now.
Yeah.
While the Liberal and the NDP kind of obviously took the majority of the vote, if you combine them together, I think it speaks to her having lost her seat, the lack of strategic direction that the Liberal Party and quite frankly the NDP, considering the NDP received maybe I think it's 2/3 or 1/3 of the Liberal vote, yet a multiple of the seats. I think people need to recognize that perhaps that's a problem as we move forward. If you're looking to supplant a progressive conservative party, is the lack of strength within the opposition and the split that exists within it. My second thought, and a caller a couple ago kind of hit the nail on the head here, and you've talked about it a little bit, is about the funding. People are talking about, okay, my mother doesn't have a bed in a hospital, my child is in a school classroom that's got more pupils than ever before, and
maybe it's not even a classroom. Maybe it's a portable, right? Maybe it's a portable. Yeah.
100% agree. I've spoken to some of my friends that have children, and half this actual physical school space is spent on daycare, while the students are in portables. Yet at the same time, under the Conservatives, there's been more money spent on healthcare than ever has been before, and I believe there's been more money spent on education than there has been before. And I look at that and I say, okay, well, why isn't it getting better? And my first thought is, well, we have a federal immigration problem that above majority funnels itself into Ontario with a misrepresentation of funding from the federal government towards education and healthcare. We have to remember that a big chunk of the funding in the province comes from the federal government. It's not a representation of the number of additional Canadians or people who desire to be Canadians, the increase we've received. And I also look at this and think, well, hold on a second. Who votes for Liberal and NDP? Do people in hospitals and schools vote for these parties? I think predominantly you could probably say the majority does, just generally speaking. I'm not trying to start a fight with anybody on that. That's just my thought. Yet every single school board in Waterloo Region and across Ontario, as far as I'm concerned, has gone to all of the unions have gone and requested more money over the last 7 years. So when they say to us, and I voted Conservative. I don't like everything that the Conservatives are doing. I think there's room for improvement, no doubt. But how can you vote for something, in my perspective, but then ask for more money and less taxes across the party that you want to vote for? I get that funding is down, but there's been more funding provided to your profession as a medical professional or an education professional than ever before, and you're pocketing more as an individual now because your union's gone and fought, and yet the federal government keeps funneling more and more and more and more people into Ontario. So if you don't want to pay extra taxes, but you want to earn more, then perhaps you need to change your immigration perspective. And it's the same type of voter, I think, that is like open the borders, but then pay me more, and don't tax me less. So, let's do a bit of a triangle, right? You pull one lever, you got to move on another. What's the giving point here? I don't think this problem will be solved as long as we've got mass unionization across the medical and the school board systems. Like, we need to standardize costs on that front.
All right, Kyle. We'll have to wrap up our conversation there for this week. But as I told you last time, I'll tell you again, you can call back anytime. Friday Free for All Talkback Hour. Still time to fit you in at 1-833-668-2577. Be right back with more of your calls in just a moment here on News Radio. Well, David, it was quite a day.
Yeah, you can say that again. I'm still kind of just taking it in.
You're still processing it.
I'm still processing it. A lot has happened since we came to air 3 hours ago.
Yeah. So again, we have a few minutes here. Why don't we play this again? Because again, this is going to be on all the evening newscasts. It's going to be on the national newscast tonight. I would suspect that, it's going to dominate a lot of discussion over the weekend on the political talk shows. Just what unfolded in the White House today. Again, for those of you just kind of being brought up to date now, President Zelensky of Ukraine was in Washington today, where he was scheduled to meet with U.S. President Donald Trump, talk about security guarantees if there is some kind of peace agreement that would end that war. And it was expected as well, David, that there would be some kind of agreement on critical minerals, right?
Yes,
rare
that's
earth
right.
elements or whatever, that a deal would be signed. So in front of all of the cameras, J.D. Vance started lecturing President Zelensky. President Zelensky tried to, as best he could, I guess, debate the vice president, and that's when the president jumped in. And, this is what it sounded like. Let's listen to this here.
During the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know
bless.
That.
You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering
position
on
to
this question.
dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly
this.
what I'm not
You're in
dictating.
no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very good.
You will feel influence.
We're going to feel very good and very
You
strong.
will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war,
You're not
Mr.
in a
Brown,
good position.
You
don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having
not
cards.
playing
But
cards.
right now, you
I'm
don't.
very
You're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're gambling
I'm the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War III.
what do you
You're
think
gambling
about?
with
What do you
World
think
War
about?
III. And
You-
what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. It's
with
back
all
to you.
respect to your
Far
country.
more than a lot of people said
very
they
respect.
should have.
Have you said thank you once?
A lot of times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
have you said thank you?
Even today.
So, depending on your perspective, that was a disgraceful display by the Trump administration and a real turning point in geopolitics. And still, others will view it as a well-deserved dressing down. I suppose it all depends on your worldview, but that is the biggest news story in the world right now, really. And I'm sure we can talk about it again, but it'll have to wait until Monday when we're back with Talk Back, and the latest breaking news is coming up next.